citizens and members of our community. So we have something in common. The reason why you're here is because you care. Because you care about our community. They're all in service wearing uniforms because they care what happens in our community. And that's why I am here. Because I love Harris County. I love it. It's our home, right? It's our home. And our little northwest corner neck of the woods, you know, there may be over 1 million people here, but doesn't it still, it sometimes, except maybe when you're sitting at a light, still feel like a small town? You'll go to Kroger and it will still take you an extra 20 minutes because you'll run into 10 people that you know, right? And I mean, that's in the third most populous county in the country. And so we still live in a small town and we still care about it, and I care about it. I love Harris County, and here's why. And this is just a little bit of my personal background. I am originally from a small town in Wyoming, and I grew up in a single parent home with a mom who put herself through college in Wyoming, raising her son, me, by herself, and I was a handful, believe you me. Got through college, took advantage of every opportunity put forth to her, took advantage of it, worked hard, and I saw it. I saw the struggles that she had as a single mom raising me. And so for around 35 years ago, we moved to Harris County. She got a job with a little mom and pop oil company you might have heard of, Exxon. And so she started her career there, what would ultimately end up being a 31-year career as an accountant with Exxon. And I saw what she did for herself, what she did for me in getting us down here. And you probably heard me say this before, from a small town in Wyoming. We weren't immigrants, literally, but we felt like it. You know? And coming from a place where there are more cattle than people to the fourth most populous city in the country, talk about a shock. But you know what? Harris County embraced us. It embraced us. I don't know if there's any other counties in the country that are this big that embrace people coming here like we do. And Harris County embraced us. And I embrace her back. I owe her a lot. I really do. I owe Harris County a lot. And I love her. And so that's why I decided, Priscilla and I, my wife, and our 2 girls, and we live in North Houston, when it came about the time to decide where you want to, where to serve again and those kinds of things, my daughters, who knows where Bush Library is, right next to the courthouse? My daughters are there all the time at puppet shows, at crafts, checking out books, hopefully not tearing books. I've had to replace a couple of those. So we were at Bush Library next door to the courthouse all the time. And right behind there is Collins Park. We go there all the time as a family. And there's a giant slide with 2 giant slides. Now, if you're not afraid of heights, I highly recommend those 2 giant slides. If you can get up to the top, you're going to have to do some ducking like me. Ride those slides down with our girls. And Priscilla and I had talked on several times. Said, if Judge Adams ever decided to retire or step down or do something different, that would be the perfect place to serve again. I'm a former prosecutor, former county employee, so I have a background in serving our county, but that would be the good place and opportunity to serve again. And heartbreakingly, the circumstances came where Judge Adams had a battle with cancer, and the cancer it's a battle that he lost, and it's still a hard time because Pauline and I have become dear friends. Pauline, his wife, she's been very, very gracious to me. We had long, good conversations about carrying on Judge Adams' legacy. And I said to Priscilla, if the opportunity ever came again to serve, I would love to serve there. We only live a few miles from the courthouse. This is our home, this is our community, and that would be the best place for us to go. And so, while the circumstances weren't how I wanted to get there, I'm honored to have been chosen to take over for Judge Adams. And like Judge Adams did, I have a tremendous heart for kids. There are so many kids, as everyone here can tell you, especially in law enforcement, especially our gentlemen in the ISDs. There are so many kids who are on the razor's edge of life, looking to go this way or this way. And it's going to determine the entire course of their life. Way back here as children. And I have a heart to help guide and shepherd where I can those kids, getting them off the razor's edge and leading them down a path away from gangs and violence and drugs, and getting them into being, on football teams and the Boy Scouts like Judge Adams did. That's my heart. It's my belief, and some of these gentlemen may agree that especially every young man is going to join a gang. Every young man is going to join a gang. Now that gang may be the football team, it may be Boy Scouts, it may be your local soccer club, or it may be worse. It may be a real gang, but every young man is going to join a gang. And it's my hope that through the courts, is through this court, that we can get kids connected up with good gangs. And now I say young men. Frankly, the incidence of young ladies coming into court has increased dramatically. I mean, I'm aging myself a little bit, but I remember when it was just the boys that always got in trouble, and that has changed dramatically. And so the same thing is holding true for young ladies. I have a heart for kids, and as a former Harris County prosecutor, and including a time as a juvenile prosecutor, I've seen the tragic consequences of when nothing is done. Once they get into that juvenile system, they're still savable and salvageable, but it gets so much more difficult. And if we can create that line in the sand way back here in the justice courts through, where we're just stopping, truancy by itself, keeping kids in school from being out and around and burglarizing your cars, doing those kinds of things, getting in with older bad kids. If we can stop that back here, they're never going to get, hopefully, up here into the juvenile justice system, and then later on, into the adult system, when frequently, not always, but frequently, there's no point of return for them. So that's kids. Another reason I want to serve too is that I have a true heart to give people confidence in the justice system. The justice courts are frequently the only exposure anyone ever has with the justice system. 90%, I'm told, of people in an area around the justice court will go into that justice court for one reason or another, whether it's jury service, whether it's to pay your ticket, I've done that about 25 years ago a few times in counties across the state. So it's a place where people can come in and resolve disputes among neighbors. And it's important that people have a confidence in their justice system that they will be treated fairly, that they'll be treated with respect. You may not like the ruling that comes from the court, but you shouldn't ever leave there having felt that you weren't heard, or that you should never leave feeling that you were disrespected, and I will never be that. And so we've seen the tragic consequences around our country when people don't have faith in their justice system, right? They tend to take to the streets, rightly or wrongly, and tragic things happen. So this is sometimes people's only experience with the justice system, criminal and civil. So as the people's, this really is the people's court. This is where you can go without an attorney pretty easily, represent yourself, and hopefully get a measure of justice. So that's why I'm here. That's why I sought out this position. I saw it, sadly, when I learned of Judge Adams' passing, I approached Commissioner Cagle and told him my heart. And there were many extremely good folks that also had the same heart to serve. And he saw where my passion was, that I wanted to serve, and that I wanted to be here as a member of our Northwest area precinct 4 to go forth. So he saw my heart, my vision, and thankfully I was allowed to be here. So the next question you have is probably, well, okay, what really does a justice court do, and are you qualified to do it? Well, especially Harris County and in large urban areas, the justice courts are probably the most diverse courts around. Because here in Harris County we have criminal courts, we have family courts, we have probate courts, we have civil law courts, we have juvenile courts. It's all very broken up. But in the justice courts, you hear just about everything. Now we're capped at certain values, the amounts of the lawsuits and those kinds of things, but you hear about everything. It's the most diverse court in Harris County. And especially in large urban areas like Houston, it's gotten extremely complex. You have to be very familiar with the penal code, the property code, several ancillary laws like bankruptcy. You've got to understand foreclosures. You've got to understand contract law. You've got to understand tort law. It's gotten really, really complex. Business law, evidence, the rules of civil procedure, which came out by the Texas Supreme Court for the justice courts about a year ago, require that justice courts now follow the rules of civil procedure, and they set those out, and they're very, very complicated. And a whole lot of common sense. Really, that's the core of it, is common sense too. It's complicated, it's complex, but really the anchor is common sense. My background professionally, you've seen a little bit. I won't go into it too much, but I'll let you know how it sort of applies to this. I've been an attorney for going on, this will be my 17th year. And out of law school, I clerked for a federal judge for 2 years. It was a briefing attorney in the Northern District of Texas, Judge Sam Cummings. He was one of Ronald Reagan's last appointees before Ronald Reagan's last term. And so my job there was to advise the judge on rulings, how I thought he should rule based on the law and the evidence and pleadings that came in. And I saw firsthand, behind the scenes, how a judge should act, how he should behave, how he should treat people, how he should listen, allow people to be heard, and then how he should rule fairly, understandingly. Where compassion is needed, compassion is given. Where sternness is needed, sternness is given. And that was a 2-year position, and then I came back to Houston and worked for an employment law firm for a year or so, a large national employment law firm representing several Fortune 500 companies in Title VII type actions, Americans with Disabilities Act, Family Medical Leave Act, Pregnancy Discrimination Act cases, and those kinds of things. So that's a civil law area that I was in for several years, and it applies here because now I've got a staff of 35 wonderful folks, and Teresa DuBose, our chief clerk, is here. And having a knowledge as sort of a leader and an employer of employment law has proven to be invaluable, because if you can set up your policies and procedures that create a positive, safe, good, non-discriminatory place to work, you're going to have a great county court, and you're going to frankly save the county from any lawsuits, which ultimately costs who? Us, right. So that's my goal there, so I'll apply that knowledge there. From there, I went to the Harris County District Attorney's Office. And like you, you're here because you care. I liked what I was doing, but I saw a story where a woman had been robbed, on the news, and I said, wow, can we just do something about that? And it really dawned on me, you can. And so I went over to the Harris County District Attorney's office, took a nice 70% pay cut to go do it. Thankfully I wasn't married at the time. That would have been a longer discussion. And went over there, and I loved every minute of it. I was able to lay my head on my pillow every night knowing that I had done something to help our community, keep it safer. As a young prosecutor, I was out in almost every justice court there is, including Judge Adams' court. And I saw each of the different judges, how they operated, handled juvenile cases, handled traffic cases in those courts. And then I was a juvenile prosecutor. And as we discussed, if we can stop a juvenile from going down a wrong path, they never get down here. And we can save some lives right here. Then I became a felony prosecutor and prosecuted cases from aggravated robberies to intoxication manslaughters to the worst. I've seen it all. I've picked many juries, tried many cases, and saw many different judicial styles. So bring that experience, because I understand too how juries hopefully think, selecting juries, understand the rules of evidence, understanding how criminal charges and those kinds of things work, so that two things happen. So that the state can proceed with their case fairly, and also at the same time so that the constitutional rights of the accused are protected. Holding the state to its burden and making sure that our community is safe, but also the constitutional rights of anybody who's accused is there. And so then after that I went into, I was there for several years at the DA's office. I took a position at a firm for a while where I was doing, debt claims and a lot of landlord-tenant stuff, which is a major portion of my docket. And then was fortunate enough to go work for Mark Lanier, who many know here, and Kevin Roberts is here. And Mark, as many know, can be extremely persuasive. So it took me from one great job to another great job, and that's where I have been for the last several years. I've gone on, handled civil cases representing corporations and individuals, handling discovery, motions, depositions, those kinds of things up till trial. A lot of time in courts, and not just in Harris County, all around the country. So that's the experience that I bring to the bench, and I each day as I hear a case, something from the last 17 years will come up that helps guide me. And so I hope to, like you, continue to care about our community. There's lawsuits between neighbors in this court, and hopefully I can be a positive influence on two neighbors who still have to live next door to each other and who want to fight. It happens, and so that they can get a fair hearing and hopefully a just result. As you may have noticed, our section of town is growing very rapidly. It's growing really rapidly. But it still feels like a small town. It does to me. I see people everywhere, same folks going around in restaurants. And so hopefully, as this little portion of the People's Court, where you can still come in, pay your ticket, get something taken care of, neighbor's tree falls on your yard and he doesn't want to pay for it, those kinds of things, where people can still come in and have a hometown court and be treated fairly and honestly. This is my home. This is our home. Our kids go to Barbara Bush Library all the time. Our kids are at Collins Park. I run on Falky Gully twice a week. Burroughs Park, we're there all the time. This is our home. I love it. I hope to be here as long as I can. Thank you very much for including me. Larry, wherever you went, you just kind of, oh, there you go. Okay. Thank you very much for including me here today. I'll stick around for a while, happy to chat with anybody, but Teresa's going to wink at me because she's like, you've got a jury who's waiting there for you too, so, you know, I may put Larry on trial and see what they do to him. This is the guy. I was falsely imprisoned. So, thank you, Larry, for including me. So,
Let's
thank you,
give
ladies and gentlemen.